Today, we're going to be taking a close look at the brand new Garmin Enduro GPS Multisport watch. This watch is clearly aimed at endurance athletes like ultra runners, Ironman triathletes, those kinds of people. I want to talk about what it is, what features it has, who it's for, how accurate the data is, and where it stands in the already stacked offerings from Garmin, including comparing it to the very similar Garmin Fenix 6. I also want to talk about some of the more nuanced things I've noticed while using this watch for the past week or so. Trust me, you haven't seen this stuff in other videos, so stay tuned. I do want to mention that this video is not sponsored by Garmin. They're not paying me to make this video, but they did send me this watch for the purpose of this review. I'm allowed to share my honest and unbiased opinion, and that's what I intend to do. This video is, however, sponsored by my new friends over at playbetter.com. PlayBetter is a US-based retailer that offers all of the major GPS sport watch brands at a competitive price. They also offer free 2-day shipping and no hassle 60-day return policy. Not only that, but for the viewers of this video, they're offering you 30% off one accessory with the purchase of a GPS sport watch. Pretty great deal. To take advantage of this deal, you got to use the link that I have down in the description and use the code CHASE30 at checkout. I also have links to all of the watches that I show in this video in the description down below. Those are affiliate links and they do help support my channel. About a week ago, I posted a preview video about the Garmin Enduro with all of the new features that are included in the Enduro. I'm not going to waste your time by repeating myself today in this video. You can check out that video by clicking the link up here. And since that video dropped, Garmin has actually released a firmware update to the Garmin Fenix 6 that released all of the additional features that the Enduro got to the Fenix 6. This includes the new Ultra Run mode, Trail Run VO2 Max, Climb Pro enhancements, Recovery Pro enhancements, and more. This firmware update basically closes the gap between the Enduro and the Fenix 6 from a high level, and they're basically the exact same watch now with a few minor differences. Same design, same titanium or steel case, same 26mm quick fit system, same PowerGlass solar technology, same Gorilla Glass screen, same display resolution, and on and on. That said, the Garmin Enduro lacks a lot of the features that the Fenix 6 offers, mainly including the ability to play back music and store it on the watch itself, Wi-Fi connectivity, and offline mapping. That last one's kind of a big deal for me. So why buy the Garmin Enduro over something like the Fenix 6? Let's talk about that today. The Garmin Enduro comes in two flavors. The gray stainless steel version for $799, and then there's the titanium DLC coated black model that I have here. That comes in at $899. These are not cheap watches by any means. There are some minor differences between the Garmin Fenix 6X and the Enduro. Mainly in terms of design, the Enduro has this really nice looking kind of neon green ring around the perimeter of the watch face, and then the start and stop button actually got a nice green accent as well, and it's actually got a different texture to it. It's got like a knurled metal around the perimeter of it. I like this kind of subtle design. It's minimalistic, but it's still kind of flashy at the same time. I like it overall. And you know me in neon green, I picked up actually another watch band for the Enduro, so now I can have the neon green perimeter on the face and then have a matching band neon green as well. So it looks pretty slick. In terms of size and weight, I was a little hesitant at first. In the past, I have tried the larger Fenix 6 models, and I always found them to be just too big and heavy for my little dainty wrist. However, this is one major difference with the Garmin Enduro. After about a week of wearing this Enduro, 24/7, sleeping with it, wearing it to work, all that stuff, I actually don't mind the size, and this is mainly thanks to the Enduro's super light weight. Coming in at just 58 grams on the titanium model, that means the Enduro is actually lighter than my tiny little Garmin Fenix 6S. Keep in mind though that the steel version of the Enduro is still a bit heavier at 72 grams, still much lighter than the similarly sized Fenix 6X, which can get up to almost 100 grams in some of the steel models. Don't get me wrong though, this is still a very large watch at 51mm in diameter. However, the back of it feels really comfortable against my wrist. It just feels overall low profile even though it's a large watch. I've had no issues wearing the Garmin Enduro 24/7 and sleeping with it. Another difference with the Garmin Enduro is the new UltraFit nylon band. This band is really interesting. It's a lot like what Chorus has done in the past with the Pace 2, and even I think the Vertix came out with a nylon band as well. But this one's a bit different. It's a little bit thicker and it's a little bit stretchier. If you look here, I can actually pull it pretty far and there's a good amount of give to it. Garmin also took a different approach with how this attaches to the watch, where the Chorus nylon band actually has a quick fit clip on it, whereas the Garmin Enduro UltraFit band is literally just a strap with Velcro on it. There's no clips or anything. So the way it attaches to the watch is it actually slips under the lug of the watch and then it just folds over and attaches to itself. It's a very simple design and it's overall pretty functional. This design actually makes the overall feel of the watch less bulky because there's no additional mechanics between your wrist and the watch. I've found this UltraFit band to be super comfortable and I've had no issues with it getting like super wet or dank or smelly or anything like that. It's very quick dry material, so that's really nice. These Velcro attachments at first made me kind of nervous. It feels like they could just pop off, but I found the longer you wear the watch, the more secure it gets. It just seems to like bite into the Velcro a bit more and it just feels more secure after wearing it for about an hour. The only issue I've had with the UltraFit nylon band is that it's actually a little bit too long for my little wrist. My wrist is about 164 millimeters in diameter, I think. I've measured a couple of times, so I might be a little bit off, but yeah, it actually overlaps on itself. See that? So it's really thick in the back when it's overlapped like that. It still works, but it feels a little bit less comfortable. But when I wear it casually and I'm not cranking it down so tight, it's totally fine. Overall though, this is a pretty sweet band. I really like it. And the good news is that if you own a Garmin Fenix 6X, you can pick this band up separately from Garmin directly or from Amazon. I'll have links down in the description, of course. So you can benefit from this cool new band from Garmin even if you don't own an Enduro. The display on the Garmin Enduro doesn't appear to be plagued by the dreaded bluish display issue we've seen in the past from other models from Garmin. It's quite crisp. The colors look nice. In terms of brightness, this is not the brightest display I've seen from Garmin. And I think there's a reason for that. It's definitely dimmer at the same brightness settings than my Garmin Fenix 6S or the 945. It's totally usable and it's still way brighter than the competition. I think this might play a role in the battery life. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Another strange thing I've noticed with the Garmin Enduro is that the user interface as a whole is a bit laggy in some situations. For instance, the initial setup and pairing process on the Garmin Enduro took a lot longer than other watches like the Garmin Fenix 6 or the 945. For some reason, it took a lot more thinking. There was a lot more waiting in between processes, and I'm not sure why that is. Even if you cycle quickly through the widgets or go through different animations too fast, the watch will bog down a little bit and it can stutter for a couple of seconds. Honestly though, the Garmin Enduro is more responsive than a lot of the competition. This is just something I noticed because I have other Garmins that I can compare to it side by side. If I was new to Garmin as a whole and I bought the Enduro as my first Garmin watch, I'd probably never notice this. My theory on this is that Garmin may be using a different processor that's more power efficient, or maybe they dialed back the processor's clock speed or something to preserve battery life, which may result in a slower overall experience. That's pure speculation. I don't really know what's going on here. In terms of the user interface, it's again exactly the same as the Garmin Fenix 6. It has the same collection of widgets like solar intensity, weather, altimeter, barometer, compass, VO2 max, and it also has training metrics like the training status, training load, and recovery advisor. The Garmin Enduro also features the updated sleep widget that the Garmin Fenix 6 got a while ago, and it's way more accurate than most of the other Garmin watches. One odd thing that was left out on the Garmin Enduro is that the standard Fenix 6 watch face isn't available. That's kind of a bummer because the Fenix 6 watch face actually allows you to view more data fields at a glance. Fortunately, there is a third-party watch face on the Connect IQ store called InfoCal that is an exact replica of that Garmin Fenix 6 watch face, so you can still get that on the Enduro if you want to. The exclusive watch face that's featured on the Enduro is nice looking in my opinion. It's really minimalistic, it's not too flashy, it displays the time, date, day of the week, along with the solar intensity graph and up to 3 data fields of your choice. I leave mine with battery life, sunrise and sunset, and the current weather. Okay, let's talk about battery life. This thing is a total beast in terms of battery life. Garmin claims up to 70 hours of GPS on activity time and up to 80 hours if you get a little bit of sunlight during that activity. Not only that, but you get up to nearly 2 months of just using this as a standard smartwatch or in standby mode without needing to charge. 2 months, that's pretty crazy. I have no reason to doubt these numbers from Garmin. In my experience so far, it's been really impressive. I've done some basic testing and I'm estimating about 1.5 to 1.8% drop in battery per hour. In one of my battery tests, I went out for a long run that was 1 hour and 10 minutes long. I had the Garmin Enduro, I had the Garmin 745, and I had the Coros Apex Pro, which is really impressive in battery life as well. At the end of that hour and 10 minute long run, the Garmin Enduro lost 2%. Just 2%, where the Apex Pro lost 4% and the Garmin Forerunner 745 lost 10%. So yeah, generally speaking, you don't have to worry about battery life with the Garmin Enduro. It's a total beast. I think the solar charging glass on the front of the watch is just as effective as it was on the Garmin Fenix 6. I don't think anything's changed with the solar glass itself, but I think the overall system is just more efficient, so solar charging has a bigger impact on it. Another deciding factor between choosing between the Fenix 6 or the Enduro might be the mapping and navigation features. The Garmin Enduro does not feature any mapping capabilities. It does, however, have basic breadcrumb mapping, which in most situations can get you by if you know your course ahead of time and you can load it on the watch. In most race environments like ultramarathons, the GPX file for the course is usually available before the race, so you can load it on the watch and still follow the course. But if you were to deviate and go off course and you're trying to get yourself back and maybe you're lost or something, this watch won't be able to help you out there. Personally, I'm a big advocate for the offline mapping capabilities, and I really wish they included it on the Garmin Enduro, but I know that was probably a decision they had to make to get the crazy battery life that we're getting with the Enduro. In terms of durability, I've had the watch for a little over a week now, and I've already managed to actually scratch the DLC coating. One little nick on the bezel and another little nick down here on the bezel. What can you do? None of these watches are scratch proof, and the larger the watch gets, the easier it is to hit it off of the side of your refrigerator, or maybe you're working on your car or something. In those situations, you might want to take this thing off and stick it in your pocket. Okay, now it's time to look at some of the data and see how it stacks up in terms of accuracy against some of the competition. What you're looking at here is the Garmin Forerunner 745 in orange, the Coros Apex Pro in red or purplish, and the Garmin Enduro in blue. This was a 6-mile out and back run on a trail with heavy tree cover, and it was actually snowing and kind of gray day, so not great for GPS accuracy. So this is a good situation to put these things to the test to see which one does the best. So because this is an out and back course in the woods, these tracks should be right on top of each other. Like the red line should be on top of the red line, the orange line should be on top of the orange line, and so on, because I retrace my steps. And as you can see, none of them are on top of themselves, and that's because it was kind of a bad day, and because no GPS watch is perfect. There's gonna be some amount of GPS drift on all of these devices. You can see here, I actually took a wrong turn. I went left instead of right. So I went left for like a couple hundred feet, and then I cut over and took a right instead. And you can see that all of them picked that up. I think to my eyes, the blue track looks the best to me because it's closest to being on top of itself. Now in this area, it's interesting. The orange seems to be doing the best. And I think this really has to do with which arm had the watch on, because I was wearing a watch on my left wrist, one on my right wrist, and one on my hand. So when I turn left, maybe the satellite signal is a little bit better for one watch than the other. It's hard to say. And finally, let's look at the end here where I actually stop and turn around to do the out and back. And all of them picked it up pretty accurately. I stopped right by the road here. I think maybe the orange track's probably the worst off here. Generally speaking, in terms of GPS accuracy, I don't really have any complaints with the Garmin Enduro so far. I've seen some reviews where people didn't get these kinds of results, so I don't know if I'm just lucky, but so far it does pretty good in terms of GPS accuracy. In terms of heart rate data, I was actually expecting to see the exact same data as like the 745, the 945, or the Fenix 6, because they all have the same heart rate sensor. And for the most part, that was true. But I did get some varying results, and I'll get into that. Okay, in this heart rate graph, we're looking at the Garmin Enduro in purple, the Coros Apex Pro in green, and the Forerunner 745 in red. Now keep in mind, the Forerunner 745 in this graph was paired to this Polar H9 chest strap for the duration of this run. So that 745 is not using the wrist-based sensor, it's using a chest strap, which should be the most accurate. And as you can see at the beginning of this run, things weren't doing so good on the Garmin Enduro. It was pretty bad, actually. You can see the Coros Apex Pro is doing a fairly decent job here, is following along with the Polar H9 chest strap, while the Enduro was just way too low. We were down in the 119, 118, 112. This is totally a one-off thing. All of my other runs were actually pretty good. Let's look at another one. Okay, so here's another heart rate graph from another run I did. This is the Garmin Enduro in red in this one, and then we've got the Polar H9 chest strap in purple. And as you can see, this graph looks much better than that last one I showed. The Garmin Enduro was doing a pretty decent job keeping up with the H9. Certainly not perfect, but much better than we just looked at. And it's interesting that one 6-mile run was the only time that the Garmin Enduro was really off. I can't help but wonder if there was something going on with the Velcro strap that caused that heart rate accuracy, because you need to keep your strap super tight if you want good heart rate data. I might chalk it up to user error, or maybe the strap came loose or something. So that was a one-off thing where I saw the really bad heart rate data. I have 7 or 8 other runs that have much better data, so we'll go with that. The Garmin Enduro's wrist-based heart rate sensor is just as good as something like a Garmin Fenix 6 or a 945 or a 745. It's the same exact sensor, so I can't help but think we're gonna get similar results. That's to say generally pretty good, but not perfect. The Garmin Enduro also features the PulsOx sensor that comes on a lot of modern Garmins. This sensor measures your blood oxygen saturation level. This can be helpful for people who train at altitude or alpinists that are acclimatizing to different altitudes as they're ascending a mountain. So I just tested myself with the Garmin Enduro's SpO2 sensor, and it came up with 95% blood oxygen saturation level. Now, to really put this to the test, I have a medical grade SpO2 sensor here that goes on my fingertip, and we're gonna see what that one says. So the SpO2 coming from this medical grade device says 99%. So yeah, the Garmin's don't typically have the most accurate blood oxygen saturation sensor. Actually, no watches do right now. Even like the Chorus watches have kind of a similar design. If you really want to know your SpO2 level, these fingertip sensors are the most accurate, and they're actually pretty affordable. I'll link this one down in the description if you're interested. All right, at the end of the day, what are my final thoughts on the Garmin Enduro as a whole? Who's this thing for? First off, in my last video I posted about the Garmin Enduro, there were a ton of comments complaining about the lack of maps on the Garmin Enduro. Also, the fact that there's no music or Wi-Fi connectivity at such a high price point. I think it's important to remember that the Garmin Enduro is not replacing anything in Garmin's current lineup. For those people looking for music, Wi-Fi, all of that stuff, the Fenix 6 and the Forerunner 945 are gonna be better options. The Garmin Enduro is simply another option for those who prioritize battery life over everything else. You're an ultra runner, you're a triathlete, Ironman, or even something like the Bigfoot 200 if you're participating in that. That race goes on for multiple days. For these people, charging a watch can be more than just an annoyance. They're in a situation of high stress, discomfort, confusion, lack of sleep. The last thing you want to worry about is charging your watch. I also think there's just a percentage of people who just don't want to worry about battery life in their watch. In smartwatch mode, this thing gets 2 months of battery life. That's crazy. You can just kind of forget about it. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I think that's a big reason why a lot of people have been moving towards Coros devices for that very reason. And for those people, there's now an option to get that awesome battery life in the awesome Garmin ecosystem. That just wasn't available before the Enduro. I actually really like the Garmin Enduro. It's somewhat of a minimalistic device. Still has excellent training tools like VO2 max and training load and training focus, while not being too bogged down with other things like offline music. The only thing that gives me a little heartburn is that price tag. At $899, it's a really expensive device, and it's lacking a lot of those features that you expect from a high-end Garmin. At the end of the day, it comes to being super lightweight, very comfortable, and crazy battery life. That's really what the Enduro is all about. And as for the price, that's for you to decide. For some people, it's gonna be a no-brainer, and they'll shell out $800 or $900 for this watch because they want amazing battery life. But I think for the majority, the Garmin Fenix 6 or the 945 are probably a better fit. But I wanna hear from you guys. Are you interested in the Garmin Enduro, or are you just gonna stick with the Fenix 6 or a different watch? Let me know down in the comments below. I am super interested to hear from you. All right, that about wraps it up for me in this video. If you found this video helpful, it added value to your life, please hit that thumbs up button. It really helps out my channel. And please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And if you are interested in picking up a Garmin Enduro or any of the other watches I show in this video, there will be links in the description that do help support my channel, but they cost nothing extra to you. I think I'm done now. Bye.